Secretary Nancy Campbell Hatfield. It's Tuesday, June 16, 2015, and this is a regular meeting of the Dublin Sand Road Services District Board of Directors. Presiding this evening is President Ed Duarte.
Thank you, Nancy. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Nancy.
Director Von Peter Leopold.
Here.
Director Benson. Here. Director Halkett.
Here.
Vice President Howard.
Here.
President Kennedy.
Here.
Thank you.
Special announcements and activities.
Yes, President Duarte and members of the board, I'm pleased to present to you a certificate of appreciation that we received, the district received from the City of Dublin for outstanding service, contribution, and generous support of the city's Dublin Pride Week in 2015. I'll pass that along. Dublin Pride Week is an annual event that the city holds, and our role was staffing a water conservation information table on Volunteer Day that week. And we also helped publicize a workshop they had, Bay Friendly Garden and Water Conservation Workshop. In particular, I'd like to thank Sue for her staff's effort and Dan McIntyre for his staff's involvement. Stephanie Olson was involved in this. That's all I have.
Public comment. At this time, those in the audience are encouraged to address the board on any item of interest that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and not already included on tonight's agenda. Comments should not exceed 5 minutes. Are there any speakers? See none. Make that item closed. Item 6, reports.
Yes, President Duarte, members of the board, I have a number of things for you tonight, starting with sort of in chronological order here. At 7 o'clock this evening, I'm scheduled to be at Dublin City Hall for Drought 2015 presentation to their council. Zone 7 staff and Paul Flores will be accompanying me there to that meeting. We will be doing a similar tag team presentation next week, Tuesday, the 20, I think it will be the 23rd, to the City of San Ramon City Council. I believe that council meeting starts, you might know, at 7 o'clock as well. July 7th is our regularly scheduled board meeting. I've been promising you for a few weeks now that it didn't look like we were going to have a meeting, and right now we do not have any business scheduled for that meeting, so I think you can safely cross it off. And I'll use my words, if there's some emergency thing that comes up where we have to call you back for it, I think you can cross it off with calendars. On July 22nd, which is a Wednesday. That's going to be the next in the series of the Tri-Valley Water Policy Roundtable meetings. Directors Halkett and Von Peter Leopold are our representatives to that meeting. This meeting will be held in Livermore. They're hosting it at a place to be determined. They're thinking Deeds and then that. We had it before. So if Georgina and Rich, if you cannot make it, let me know. All the other board members are alternates. So if you can't make it, let me know. And if any of the other board members want to attend and want to participate anywhere, then we have some hoops to jump through in terms of those things. So please let us know about that. If you just want to attend and and sit and observe, you're more than welcome to come and do that. You won't run afoul of the ground that way. Next item is the Association of California Water Agencies has started the process for naming their president and vice president for the years 2016 and 2017. If any of you are interested in being considered for that office, an application process is needed, but also what's needed is resolution of support from the Board of Directors. The timing is such, even though the applications wouldn't be due until September, I would need to know from you if you were at all interested in a position by about July 15th in order to calendar that resolution for consideration by our board. And this is for Aqua as a whole. It's not Region 5. I know we participated, but it's Aqua as a whole. And I think that's all for events, but I do have one piece of correspondence for the board. I believe there's a copy in front of you. It's a letter we received via email from Marcy Schwartz. Actually, we received directly email from Marcy Schwartz, 3642 Aviana Way in Dublin. It's addressed to whom it may concern, but if you read the letter, I think it concerns the board, so I'm presenting it to you over here. Basically, she observes that she bought a house in Dublin, and it has a recirculating hot water system, which she's really pleased with. And it does not. Anyways, she's commenting on the possibility of recirculating hot water systems, and she raises two possibilities. One is a possibility for requiring such features in all new homes going forward, and the second one is a possibility of rebates for homeowners that choose to retrofit their homes to these kind of systems. With regard to new homes, that would be a building permit matter, and that would be something that the city of Dublin would have to review over. With regard to rebates, that would be possible if the board would like us to look into this. Currently, the district does not offer a rebate for this, and it might take a little time if you were interested to develop such a program. But we will be responding to Ms. Schwartz in a few days.
Can I get check in to see what kind of potential savings that would
Save water or save energy?
Well, it definitely save water, and depending on the type of system a homeowner buys or that we restrict it to, it could save energy or it could burn a little bit. So, there's different versions of this.
It only saves water though because you don't let the water run to get hot.
That's right. That's right. That's the water saving part of it. Because a few of us know how to go about this for that purpose very well.
Is PG&E offering any rebates for that?
Sue, I don't believe they are, although they may be offering one for the energy efficient one, but you know.
I'm not aware of any PG&E rebates.
And for these type of systems, and neither is Zone 7 offering any rebates. This would be just as your own program. If you want us to look at it, we could certainly kick around and do that.
I'm sure the information's out there already where you don't have to do too much digging, so
Would you like
a lot of effort on it. I mean, just another home we just recently bought in the foothills. The previous owner had installed a recirculating water system, and you get hot water almost instantaneously on any faucet in the house.
So we'll bring it back to the board. And that's all I have in terms of reports. As far as staff is concerned, you can go through the agenda in its order.
Item 7, approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of June 2nd.
Move for approval of those minutes.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of our regular board meeting of June 2nd. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay, item 8, consent calendar. We have a lengthy one. Items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. I'm almost out on the roll. Okay, quite a few items. So first of all, is there anyone that wants to pull one out? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as it stands.
I'll move approval of items 8A through 8O. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar for items 8A through 8O. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Board business, item 9A.
Yes, President Duarte, members of the board, this is our standing item to review and discuss the district's drought management program. You recently updated a number of actions back on May 19th, and on the consent calendar you took action or note to approve a change in the enhanced rebate program to make those rebates only available where they're not otherwise specified by law. So we've taken care of that. I'd also like to call your attention to, this is kind of linked to another item on your agenda, and I know the board hasn't rendered a decision on this next item on the agenda, but it's related to the item going from stage 2 water rates to stage 1 water rates, and and it's related to the WISE water user credit. So I'd like to just call up a little spreadsheet over here on the screen and show you what the issue is and see what your direction might be. And this would be one of those things where it was on just going through the stage 1 rates. So the way this WISE water user credit works, let me see this. The way this WISE water user credit works is we have, as you know, we have baseline rates, which are normal non-drought times, and depending on the level of conservation you are looking to achieve from the community, we have various stages, stage 1, 2, 3, and actually there's a stage 4, which we've never gone up to. Stage 3, we were there in 2014, calls for, based on basically 30% conservation. Stage 2 is 20%, stage 1 is 10%, okay? And this is related to, this WISE water user credit is related to people that are in tier 1, the lowest water using people in the district. And the board's thought last year when we went to stage 3 is these are people that are doing a great job already, so we should penalize them with higher rates, given that their message to them saying thank you very much, you're doing a good job, and you can help us a little bit more, we sure appreciate it, but continue with your work. So last year, the way our rates that you've adopted worked, it went from 53 cents a unit all the way up to 92 cents a unit. And the WISE water user credit last year was $2 per month. The way that's calculated is the difference between 92 and 53 is 39 cents. If you assume, we just generously assume that everybody used 10 units, and some people actually use less than that. Then you multiply those 10 units times 39 cents, voila, you get $3.90. That's bi-monthly, $1.95 a month, we simply rounded it to $2. Do the same arithmetic in stage 2, it would come out to 65 cents. The direction we presented this to the board back in early May, we said, no, let's keep it at $2, so we have not changed that going forward. The same question for your direction is posed today, not to take action, but just for your direction. If you go to stage 1, you go through the arithmetic and the additional cost, additional amount that a person would pay for using that 10 CCF water would only be 30 cents a month rather than the $2. So that's why I had to be determined there. So the question is, do you want to just stay at $2 if you were to go to stage 1? Do you want to, change the program? Maybe you don't want to give me direction until we get to that item on the agenda, but it seems appropriate to pose this question to you. Did you follow what I said? Thoughts?
We have like a couple thousand people, 1,000.
1,000 people. This one represents, $2 a month well, it amounts to about $12,000 a year, John, if, round numbers is what that amounts to, given the number of people that keep their usage in that tier.
I just say make it a block, We're rounding way up at that point, but two's too many. If we're down to tier 1, 2 is too many. For the optics of it, it doesn't cost much, I think.
Okay, we'll come into that for a decision at a future board meeting, provided you act, to move the space line. If you don't understand, that's all. Okay, thank you. 9D, further enlargement, members of the board. This is actually a little bit of an action item to accept our water supply and demand report and then make a finding that the need for the drought emergency still exists. There's a lot of information here. I'd like to call a couple of things to your attention. Year to date, the district is actually still achieving almost 30% conservation from 2015 to 2013. That's the baseline we're working against this year. And in the last few weeks, it sort of depends on the weather, one year versus the weather in a different year. So we bounce back and forth between about 20% savings versus about 40% savings, depending on what you look at. So we're doing very well. We also recently received from the state a new allocation. We loosened up on our allocation from a 16% conservation program to a 12% conservation program. That happened after the end of, we try to do these at a calendar month and basis that we're that's the reason for the rate plan that you're being asked to consider. A couple other things that are on the horizon is that the State Water Resources Control Board just issued a rulemaking proposal for one element of the governor's emergency order, which is to mandate conservation pricing. We think we already have a conservation pricing rate structure, but the state board is going to be looking at that. So God only knows where that's going to bounce. That's going to be pretty controversial, particularly as we might have talked to a key decision in Capistrano. We'll see where that's going. The other piece of information is the state board also issued a draft model landscaping ordinance, which is a revision, and we forwarded that on to two cities that we work with in San Rose, so it's on the radar screen. So that might necessitate some changes in water use for the development going forward as well. But those regulations are not adopted. So a couple of things to look forward to. And that's all I have. That's about all I have to say about this.
Questions or comments?
You need a motion, so I'll move that we accept the water supply and demand and drought response action plan as specified here.
Find that need for the continuation of drought rates.
All this.
Yeah, all that stuff is written. I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to accept item 9B in its entire title as stated. All in favor?
Very good. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Board item 9C.
President Duarte, members of the board, you have in front of you for consideration a change in the drought rate. Remember on the May 19th board meeting, you authorized the setting of stage 2 drought rate as Bert was mentioning, and coincide with the stage 2 drought condition that we were in, and the 16% conservation target that we had received from the State Water Resources Control Board. Last Monday, the Control Board updated the data and the finding based on some revised information staff provided them. And our target was reduced from 16% to 12% reduction based on 2013 consumption. Our rate targets are based on certain achievable reductions. So the stage 2 is based on a 20% reduction in volume. Stage 1 is a 10% reduction. Just for information, the current, as of last week, we're about almost 30% to the 2013 target, just as a reference. The tier line rate that we're proposing is in line with the mandated 12% reduction. We're proposing that this rate be retroactive to May 19th, when the last resolution, which my staff would take care of any adjustments so that some customers are not impacted while others get the benefit of the change. And we calculate that credit and apply it to accounts. There are about 4,000 accounts that were billed last month in that billing cycle, and we're currently holding up a billing cycle right now, a matter of days pending your direction and action. So we think this would get the rates in line with where our targeted savings need to be, so as not to overcharge the customers for the targeted reductions. Any questions?
So how are we going to get from the actual, we've been training the community for 18 to 24 months now to behave a certain way. How are we going to get from the actual to the target? Because if we move the rates towards the target, the actual stay at 30, we're going to really not be happy people.
Let me try to answer that. I think you got to ask the question of how much do you believe the rate structure really drives that additional conservation versus how much of that conservation is just driven by the message that's out there that people want to consume.
No, I think it's totally driven by the message, but if you change the rates so if you're behaving this way and the rates are this way.
No, and the gap between, say, and this varies month by month, but let me just talk on a really average basis, is the difference between the 30% actual savings versus the year versus rates based on 12% is a revenue gap.
Yeah.
That's in there. John look at that, you may want to comment based on, the rate stabilization reserves.
Yeah, remember we had a surplus before consideration of the PERS payment. And it was a substantial surplus this year. So I think each 10% was about $500,000 in revenue loss that could drop going down. But we're starting with a surplus. So I think the funds can handle any change at this level, even at looking at the current. So they throw a lot of different percentages, sorry. Yeah, we're 30% below the 2013 number, and at the current levels, that's about 20% below the budget. So with almost a $2 million surplus before the payments, we're still in good shape.
And there's two examples in my neighborhood that have me concerned, because it's both parks, so Shannon Park and Dolan Park, are bone dry. It's like the city has not either been told or gotten the message that they need to change.
They're not doing anything.
The city has basically shut down all outdoor.
Right, so I think, I don't want to pick on the city, they're our partner, I like them a lot, but it almost seems like the drought's being used as an excuse to put some money in their pocket because they're not watering. I mean, they can water now. We need to get that message out. The school the same way. If you don't know where my sons are, the field is going dry. It's, so at least those two institutional customers are behaving like it's last year, and it's not last year. I mean, if you believe our water wholesaler, we have all the water we need. The only reason we even have an emergency is because the state's making us do it. No, the only cover we have to actually pass that emergency is because the state's making us do it. Because when your wholesaler says that you get all the water you want, you can't declare a drought emergency. Sorry, I moved off to a little bit of a rant, but I'm just concerned that the community, that we're kind of going this way a bit, the community is going the other. At this point, it's just a concern, but I just need
Well,
to
the
get that out
problem
there.
is you really don't, I know we don't want to send the community the wrong message, but we really don't want them to stop what they're doing. I mean, they're doing well, but I agree with you, those two parks are...
Well, they're doing well, but if you believe all the science, what people are telling us, they don't need to do 30% anymore. So how do you move from 30 to 15? I don't know.
Well, but one of the ways might be even lowering this rate too.
Well, my question is, the 12% that the WR came down, that's a bare bones minimum. If we have reasons to believe we need to conserve more than 12%, we can do that. We can set that as a goal. Legal counsel could weigh in.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be, that's supposed to be the amount the minimum amount that you can achieve in order to help the state achieve a 25% overall.
Well, my concern is with our water wholesaler taking a risk position in, pumping the ground dry. And I think we need to take more action than 12%.
Well, I absolutely agree, and I think maybe the thing to do is to not really publicize a lot the 12%.
Well, you've got to say it like it is, though.
Why? They're doing well.
We're
keep
doing it
up.
now.
Yeah, true. But you're doing well, keep it up, because we collectively don't necessarily want to run our groundwater dry.
But we need a consistent message between rates and restrictions and public outreach. It all needs to form consistency. And, I don't want to see, headlines. Area water board, just kidding about restrictions.
Yeah, that's the concern about it. When everybody else is going the other
Just
way.
commenting on the restrictions, the state has set 16%, but the state has also mandated certain use restrictions which are in our ordinance.
Yeah, but a lot of them aren't.
No, that's true, and, that's what we're, if we went back to 9A, that's what we would be looking for direction on, if we want to make changes to those.
Well, on this particular item, You know, truthfully, I can't support at this time. I think it's premature. I think we need to see what this long, hot summer might be like. I think we need to take our time, and if, you know, depending on what Zone 7, how they do, if it turns out that we can go back to stage 1 rates, I think we need to do it right, where we go through the formal process of public hearings, and we change our restrictions accordingly, where we mandate what the state says to mandate. And, you know, stage 1 is really a voluntary, most of it should be voluntary. And so I think we should separate what the state says you have to do from what we hope you will do voluntarily, and do the package right. I think we should do this in the late summer, not now. I think it's too soon.
I think so too. I have to agree. It just really skews the message in the valley.
No, I think I agree. It's just a little bit too early. It'd be really nice to be able to reward those people who did so well, but we can do it later.
And we did reward them already.
Yes.
So we're down 1. But we don't know if our wholesaler, we haven't, it's still the beginning. It's not, we've not gone through summer yet.
Yeah.
So what happens if they come back and they need to go, you know, things change?
Or, you know, just the crazy weather we've had. Sometimes it stays hot all summer, you know. Well, we're gonna use more water no matter what if it stays hot. Because kids are gonna run through the sprinklers no matter how much we stop them. And the water fountains will go back on for the city. We'll leave it on.
Well, this action wouldn't do that. I just, to echo Pat, I think the thing that I started was, I'm concerned about a disconnect between what we're saying, what's written down, what the state's saying, and what we're saying with rates, and I think they should all be lined up. Personally, I mean, if we could align the program with the rates, that'd be great. I mean, I have no problem bringing the rates down. I don't want to bring the rates down and have a program that's, you know, operating at you know, some high octane, you know.
Stage 3 is tough.
It's behaving like stage 3, so we have a program that's behaving like stage 3. Well, it will continue to behave like stage 3. And it doesn't make sense to me to have stage 1 rates with the state, the program that's behaving like stage 3.
Yeah, I think I agree.
I agree too.
So is it consensus enough, or do you want a formal, it would help you to have a formal?
No, I think if there's no motion and second, nothing happens.
Thank you, John. You're a little later in the year. Yeah.
Oh, we key up billing tomorrow morning. We key the billing tomorrow morning. I guess wrong.
That's my favorite part of my day.
No, I think
Looking over receivables?
The billing.
Oh.
I think we ought to rethink September.
Bless you.
I think September would be a good time to rethink.
And then I think the direction would be, don't do the rates on that, you know, bring the entire, if the entire program wants to be looked at, it's do it all together.
Okay, John, you want to try again on 19?
Try again? This is a little less funny. President Duarte, members of the board, this is a request to approve a transfer from the Water Expansion Fund to the Water Rate Stabilization Fund. You remember, this is part of the Water Expansion Fund management policy, and once a year we'll review the funds themselves and see whether effectively part of the TIC can be repaid to the benefit of ratepayers. We've done that year-end review. If you look at the tables that were attached, there's one which is, you know, development as planned. There is one, 2017 is under target slightly, but that was in the budget that you saw that we presented, and for all the reasons explained with some projects that were moving forward earlier in time. There's also an analysis of the stress development plan, which remember was at 60% development rate. On that side, we look at anything that would go negative. And you do have a negative down in 2023, but that was, as we also included in this, moving forward, $7 million project from an out year up front. So we felt that it's far enough in the future that we can warrant proposing a $175,000 transfer, which is minimal, but it does reflect the board's continued support of repaying this amount over time. And then we review it again next year with some of the development. It looks like it's really coming through. Capacity fees continue coming in. Hopefully next year will be a larger amount.
We'll also have a completed water master plan on that one, so we won't be speculating on some of these things.
No. This is pro forma. I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Get moved and seconded to approve the transfer of $175,000 from the water expansion fund to the water rate stabilization fund. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9E.
Yes, President Duarte, members of the board, this is an interesting matter. The state budget was approved yesterday on June 15th, according to the state constitution. It's now on the governor's desk, and the governor has 14 days to sign it. Typically what happens after the completion of the budget, the Department of Finance looks at all the things that the legislature wants to spend money on, and maybe legislative authority to do certain things. So they propose a series of very fast bills called trailer bills, which have to be enacted. They're approved by the legislature, but they have to be enacted in this 14-day period. There's a number of trailer bills going forward this year. There's one of them that's particularly controversial among water agencies, or directly certain water agencies, has certainly gotten high on the priority list of organizations involved in the Special District Association. That's trailer bill number 8.5. You won't find that within the Assembly or Senate website. That's a finance number. And it's related to public water systems consolidation. And basically what the proposal is to consolidate, put it this way, if a water district cannot reliably meet safe and sufficient supplies of water, that the state board for the consolidation of that district with other districts. And in particular, this is as a result of a number of communities in the Central Valley which are out of water and do not have the financial resources to provide water to their people, particularly small farming communities. ACWA has taken an opposed position on this bill. California Special Districts Association has taken an opposed position on this bill. Under your legislative advocacy policy, since those agencies took those positions, I had the authority to write in a letter in support of the positions to oppose this. I didn't do it because usually I try to reserve district participation for things that directly affect the district. This one didn't seem like it directly affected the district. And the politics seemed to me to be just a little bit, I don't know if the word is controversial. Basically, the word on the street is this is going to break down public lines in Sacramento. And it is for health and human services kind of issue that's going on in Central Valley. Director Von Peter Leopold and I talked about this bill extensively last week, traded a number of emails, and basically she asked them to put on the board agenda for your consideration and form the district position for the bill. If you choose to go with an opposed position, we would have to get that out, and we would get that out tomorrow morning. It's probably this bill will be voted on Thursday. I would also note that in your agenda packet, we had a May 17th version of the bill, which was the most current one I could find last week when we were putting the agenda together. In front of you, we have a copy of the bill. I think it's actually a version. It's still a little bit dated. I think it's June 10th or June 11th. It's just identified as item 9E, which is more extensive.
Well, why don't I start out, because the first I heard of this was last Wednesday at the Board of Directors for the Allegheny County Special Districts chapter. As Bert noted, Aqua and CSDA have both taken opposed positions. And I somewhat disagree with his stance that it doesn't directly affect us. What constantly worries me about state government is that they tend to take interpretations of words and really stretch them out. When it talks about adequate and safe, we could make an argument, or an argument could be made, that we do not have ourselves an adequate and safe supply. Which leads me to think that at some point, because there's a whim in the regional water quality or the water quality control board, that we could find ourselves in that situation. And that's number one. Number two, they don't talk about private ones, and there's some private ones in trouble too. And number three, WAFCO's already there to do this. I don't understand why they don't just strengthen the LAFCO laws and make them do it. This scares me when you give an agency that's not elected this kind of authority. I think it's wrong.
When I got the email, I responded with almost the same comments. Anytime you have the bureaucrats in San Francisco and in Sacramento given this kind of free hand, so to speak, they inevitably take the mile when given the inch.
Yeah.
And they don't know when to stop. And I understand, that coming from my hometown of Visalia, Porterville is, some of those smaller water districts down there are absolutely broke or in trouble. But I just can't trust. Personally can't trust the politicians in Sacramento to do the right thing in the best interest of all. I'm opposed.
Opposed to.
Well, if, why hasn't their local LAFCO acted already? And why haven't these larger districts stepped up and taken responsibility?
Why would you take on somebody else's
You
debt?
need a pot to do that.
But if this was East Bay Lead, do you think they just take on all of our debt and us with it?
Not unless they were forced to with a law like this.
Why should they be forced to?
Because they need to. Otherwise they won't.
But LAFCO can do that. The problem is they don't have the.
No, the Valley Lapis was bought and paid for 6 days was Sunday.
Yeah, that's
The
the
very-
biggest problem.
The very people who don't want to take on small districts control LAFCOs at the Valley. So LAFCO is not the answer.
LAFCO's already there, so all we'll do is create another knotted mess of laws where, I'm always reminded of a situation with Marty Enderbitzen and the Lynn family and their properties. They had a fire in an area that was just sort of a gully. They couldn't put the fire out because it was going to upset the stream management, and Air Quality Control Board was fining them because there was a fire burning that was causing smoke. And this actually, it really happened, and there was, nobody would stand up and say, okay, the fish and wildlife and fish have the authority over the air quality. Nobody had the authority over either one of them. So they paid the stupid fine and let it burn out. And that's what I think will happen with something like this. Like I said, maybe the LAFCO laws need to be rewritten. I personally think it's a conflict of interest to have the county supervisors be in so much control of the LAFCOs. They're not independent in that way. But
So that being said, I don't care enough about this to worry about it. Because, the reality is, any letter we write will make zero difference to the bench, so, if we want to write an opposed letter,
I'll move we officially oppose the budget trailer bill 825.
I'll second.
You move your second to oppose the budget trailer bill 825. All in favor? Opposed? Order one.
Thank you.
9F. Thanks.
Good evening. This item is being brought back to the board. It was the tentative statement cost policy, and it was discussed on May 19th with the board. At that time, it was the every other year review of this tentative statement policy ahead of the election cycle, and it's the board's time to consider whether there needs to be a change to the amount a candidate would be for a tentative statement. And during that discussion, Director Halkett made a suggestion that possibly the board would consider having kind of a two-tier system, that challengers might pay a little bit less for their tentative statement in each county, and incumbents might pay a little more. And then it was brought to general counsel that is that a legal thing that we can do, and what do you know about that? I've done a little more research on that, and
Well, there's two things that I'm concerned about. I mean, one can make an argument that there's a benefit to encouraging new blood and having people run for office. The problem is, in order to make that argument in a court, which is where I always assume disputes end up, you've got a more complicated argument. A simple argument is it's unfair. You know, that's pretty straightforward. The second thing that gives me a bit of concern is the fact that there's case law that holds this actually is public interest to have candidate statements out there, and that sort of riches up the risk factor involved there. And so that's the basis of why I've concluded it. You might be able to make a case, but it seems the odds are you lose for those two reasons.
I hope the legal research was enjoyable.
It was interesting and different.
Yeah. I put the policy as it is. So the only thing in action.
Well, I guess
Yeah, it has to be approved. Well, no, the action is
we
policy
have
in
to
place.
affirm no changes.
But there's no
I mean, we can do it with no action.
No, you can. Earlier in the consent calendar, we do a bunch of what we call status quo policies by motion. We just like to have that affirmation. But if you don't change anything, then
I think we have a motion to second.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
We have a motion.
I do.
It's okay.
I'll second.
There we go.
Okay, it's been moved in second to affirm there be no changes to the candidate statement cost policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And our last item.
President Dorgan and members of the board, this is a very special evening. We have before you a proclamation honoring Nancy Gamble Hatfield's 26 years of service to the district. I won't embarrass Nancy and read through all of these things tonight, but I think you'll enjoy reading them. It basically is saying thank you very much for your years of service and for being you. And I would recommend that the board approve it. And if you do, we have to present this one.
On the promotion? I'll second.
Proclamation honoring Nancy Gallo Hatfield, retiring district secretary and executive services supervisor of 2007.
This is item 9,
9G, and H.
It's been moved in second to approve it. This is item 9G. To absolutely approve the proclamation honoring Nancy Gamble Hatfield, retiring district secretary and executive services supervisor of Dublin San Ramon Services. All in favor?
Aye.
Absolutely unanimous.
Look at that.
And what we would like to do is, President Barton, I'll give this for you. This is really from the board to Nancy, so, you know, if you could be so kind as to present to Nancy. The rest of the board can get in a great photo op, I'm sure.
Come on up front. And there's no logo on the wall. It's come out. This will be a collector's item. Picture, no logo.
Process. I mean, what they try to do is look at that in like that kind of thing, and it's just ridiculous. No, they need to take all these things out.
Way to vote.
Don't be easy, we'll go faster.
Should we put this on your table?
Forever hold, yeah.
All right.
There's one there and there's one
There's
here.
one. That was hard.
Yeah, that's it now.
Good work.
Oh, yeah. I always stand next to the tall
We don't
one.
have all the voice from
One girl, one girl.
Thank you. There you go.
Over here. So it's sort of in the middle. Let me do here, 1, 2, 3. Okay. That works.
Take your new office. Right. You can tell Michael.
Did a great job getting those pictures inside the glass. It's like those.
Better those
It's okay. I know, they just like the last one.
President Duarte, with your dispensation,
Do you need any of us to go there?
you're more than welcome to go.
Oh, I gotta go.
If you want.
Are you going?
No.
He's just saying that because he wants to get out of the meeting.
Yeah, he wants to
There's no basketball.
bounce the ball.
Yes, there is. There is.
Okay,
Take care. Thanks.
All right, board members, item 10, submitted written reports, travel and trade. Rich?
Yeah, I have a couple of items. I attended the Economic Development Committee for the Chamber of Commerce for the month of June, and Chris Foss and Linda Smith from the City of Dublin made a presentation about the various projects going on around the city. It was very, very interesting, actually, simply because of all the controversy that's going on right now about whether we should be building in a drought, et cetera, and the fact that, as you all know, traffic is getting very bad. So, but we did find out that the Crown Chevy building or area has approval for 314 units, 65 of which will be for veterans housing. Wallace Ranch has approval for 806 units. Iron Gate has approval for 430 houses, Muller Ranch 371, and then the fun one, Double Crossing, has approval for 8,100 units. So obviously, we still have a lot to go. Yeah. And those are all pretty much vested. I mean, they don't have to go through anything, and there's not much any of the naysayers can do to stop it, so.
The 81, where did you say that?
Dublin Crossing.
Where is it?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. That's the dyslexia. 1,800.
Oh,
Pardon me. Oops. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I'm reading 8,100 units with 4,600 approved is what the general plan amendment called for. And, you know, it was done 20 years ago or 21 years ago, so we're just around following it. Anyway, I know there's a lot of people that don't agree with that right now. The other meeting I went to was the, as I mentioned earlier, the board meeting for the Alameda County Special Districts Association. Mark your calendar. March 24th next year is the annual dinner meeting. We have the whole rest of the year set out as to who's going to speak. In July, it's going to be Mona from LAFCO. And as there's some big issues going on right now with regards to garbage service to Five Canyons and Central Sam. So it should be very timely. They want to invite Bart to speak, the next meeting in September will be Hayward Area Recreation District. We did approve the bylaws. They have to go to one more vote of the general meeting, which will be at the July 8th meeting, which is going to be at East Bay Regional Parks. The new person that was hired for California Special Districts for legislative work is Jane Waddle. We had a conference call with him talking about this trailer bills, which is why there was so much information. Interestingly enough, we took in only $2,700 from the annual dinner this year. We didn't have near as many as we've had in the past. We had 60 people. We normally have close to 100. And the cost was $5,100. So fortunately, we had a little in the bank. We had about $5,000 in the bank, so it's fine. But we are talking about doing something with the due structure because it is only $50, and so some of the districts don't pay attention and if they want to vote. And of course, from now on, the member or the agency who has paid their dues will have to appoint someone specific for all votes. And that's it.
I have two things to share, very quick. Custer Valley Forum and San Leandro Times, my husband's newspaper, both had articles and about the recycled water program. So we made it all the way to Custer Valley and to
Los Angeles and Paris.
Yeah, in San Leandro. So that was a very nice article. And one of the writers for the Times and Custer Valley Forum has taken advantage of getting recycled water.
So, I'm sorry, one thing I'd like to ask, when's it going to open across the street?
Oh, yeah.
We are looking at opening potentially Friday.
Cool.
Right, the delay up to this point was getting enough people hired, and they're currently being trained, so at least right now we're hoping to open up on Friday.
Okay.
Soft launch.
Soft launch.
Excellent.
So my husband's the only one who can come, is that what you're saying?
They're going to email Dublin folks who go to the fill station at the plant and let them know and work out the kinks
Well,
before
since
we...
my email isn't working.
I'll call you.
That's it. I'm out of the country, so I will see you on that.
You're out of the country for the whole month.
As we get ready to adjourn, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence and to honor the passing of a good employee that Mr. had for many years. That's Gary Lee. For myself, my very first employee recognition dinner that we had, I think, in February 13, he was one of the fellows that came up and spent almost 20 minutes with me asking my background. We had a lot of things in common. We had a nice conversation. So along with everyone in the district and the board, we truly miss this gentleman, and so I'd like a moment of silence before we adjourn. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Are you going to meet him?
Yes,
Want me to hit stop for you?
I am.
Okay. Just stop. Yep.